Welcome.
Oh.
Hi.
Just before we begin, I'd like you to imagine that you're actually on the back deck of Avid Reader with a glass of wine in hand, or a water. Just bear with me as I manage the Zoom side of things a little bit. But thank you all so much for joining us for this evening's discussion of the 99th Koala with Leah Kaminsky in conversation with Kailas Wild. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I'm currently broadcasting from. That's the Yagara and Turrbal people. As we celebrate NAIDOC Week this week, I pay my respects to elders past and present. Sovereignty of this land was never ceded and always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Before I hand over to our authors this evening, I'd first like to reiterate some of the information mentioned to you in the email you got earlier. You're all automatically been placed on mute, and you will remain so throughout the event, but I will unmute everyone at the end of the event so that you can join me in thanking our speakers. Kai will be keen to answer any questions you have towards the end of the event. If there's time, the way we'll do that is if you could send them through to me in your chat function, I will read them out along with your name when I'm prompted to do so closer to the end. I'd also like to mention that we have a special promotion for everyone in attendance today. If you use the code EVENT, so that's EVENT, at the checkout on our website, you get 10% off all books ordered from our website within the next 24 hours. I'll post the link to purchase your copy of the 99th Koala later on. So make sure you grab your copies early and make the most of that discount. I'd now like to introduce our In Conversation partner, Leah Kaminsky. Leah's debut novel, The Waiting Room, won the Voss Literary Prize. She is the author of 10 books. The latest one was just released, Animals Make Us Human, a collection of well-known writers and ecologists writing about their special love for a unique Australian species. The book is raising money for the Australian Wildlife Conservancy and Australian Marine Conservation Society. Thank you so much, Leah. I'll hand over to you.
Hi, guys. I'm in Melbourne. Genevieve's in Brisbane. Kai's in Sydney.
Margaret's in Lancashire in the UK.
Awesome. What time is it there? Wow.
Oh, Margaret.
Oh, and Francine's from Belgium.
Oh, this is brilliant. I love Zoom. So, guys, thanks for coming. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to Kai's wonderful book, which we will first up have a look at. I know it's back to front, The 99th Koala. And this is a superb, superb book in many, many ways. Brief intro to Kai, who we'll get to know a little bit, I hope. He is a climbing arborist, and we'll talk more about that. Well, I want to talk more about that. A conservationist, a wildlife rescuer, which is what this book is all about. He is also the surrogate father to a orphaned koala from Kangaroo Island called Joey Kai, which was named after him. We'll hear more about what happened to him down the track. We'll park that for now. But I guess I just want to kick off with a little quote. There's a bit of serendipity going on here because our new book, Meg Keneally and I put together a book called Animals Make Us Human. And in that, the opening story is by a writer called Keridwen Dovey. And so the guy that she put us onto, the photographer that donated the photos, gave us this photo and a couple of others. And the whole essay is talking about her experience reporting at Kangaroo Island, and Kai's a very important part of that story. But I only realised recently that that's him as well. So I'm not only interviewing Kai, but he's in my book. So that's really cool. Kai, let's just kick the ball to you. I want to ask you what sounds like an obvious question, but I think is the first question. It's like, why did you write the book? Let's just start with that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Hey, Leah. Yeah, this might sound really obvious too, but like, I honestly, I didn't plan to write a book. I got contacted by a number of publishers who were really interested in my story, and yeah, really encouraged me to publish. But I think it's really important that you know, that we remember basically what the summer was like for not only for communities and for us, but for wildlife. And I guess, yeah, we've seen how easy it is to kind of for new things to come up and to forget with things like the pandemic. So yeah, I'm really excited that there's this artifact that now exists from that period in not just my life, but so many people's lives who are affected by the fires.
So let me take you back. I mean, let's assume people haven't read the book. I guess, you know, a lot of people will have been following your story on social media or in the media and kind of know, but let's assume that they don't know for us here, okay? Just
Sure.
tell me a little bit. I mean, basically, here's this guy, he's an arborist and he's in Sydney, and he suddenly decides that he's going to pack up his truck and all his gear and his life and everything and drive, is it over 1,700 kilometres across the country in the middle of bushfire season to go and help rescue koalas at Kangaroo Island. I just wonder, do you remember that actual moment when you decided this is what I'm going to do?
I mean, I do. You know, for that whole bushfire season over the entire summer, yeah, I just felt this real need to be able to do what I could to help. And when I wasn't able to help, I felt just a bit, you know, useless and helpless. And yeah, I guess like it was just literally when this message popped up in my Facebook, just yeah, this message from a wildlife carer that I'd helped in the past.
What was the message?
Just asking if I knew anyone on Kangaroo Island who could climb trees, because there was a wildlife rescuer there who'd found a koala that they couldn't access. Yeah, they couldn't reach. And I think, you know, by that point, I'd heard that there'd been that call out for volunteers to help with wildlife on Kangaroo Island, and I'd heard there'd been this massive response that, like, you know, thousands and thousands of people had responded. And so I'd really just kind of moved on and figured that they had that whole situation covered. And so I guess, yeah, as soon as I saw that message, you know, I thought two things. I thought, well, I don't know anybody who's on Kangaroo Island who can climb, but that's something that I would just love to be able to help with. And so, yeah.
And so there was that kind of moment of realization, was there?
Yeah. Wow. Like they do need help, and yeah. So wildlife and climbing, that's kind of just two, I guess, passions. Or yeah.
So you get in the car and you take off across.
I had a little sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a few hours sleep and got packed, and
then you get kind of halfway across the country, and what happens? I think it was in Hay, wasn't it?
Yeah, as I was driving across, I kind of was giving it more thought. Yeah, hey, it's about halfway to South Australia, and yeah, just thinking more and more about the situation and how much I kind of didn't know about the situation, and I was just getting kind of progressively more and more tired, and the idea of kind of arriving just to find out that there was no point of me being there, or that I was going to be in the way, just seemed like just a really kind of like a bad idea, and felt like I'd jumped the gun a bit. So yeah, I spent a few hours just trying to suss out what the situation was on the ground from as just many different kind of people as possible, or as many organizations really, who seemed like they should have an idea, and finally got through to Georgie from Humane Society International. So yeah, and I hadn't really heard of this organization before, but got put onto them by my mum, who had just seen them on the news, and yeah, Georgie was able to kind of give me a bit of an idea that, you know, even if it seemed like there was a bit of a structure there, or like there could be a need, or that it was just at least enough that I felt like it's worthwhile to continue on that journey to, like, yeah, the second half of that journey to Kangaroo Island, and drive another 10 or so hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that first kind of that first feeling that we've got to do something. That was also behind our book, is that, you know, I opened up the window in Melbourne and, you know, watching the news and hearing about everything that's going on, and I'd been collecting equipment and stuff in our clinic to ship off to wildlife carers, but that feeling of I've got to do something, the smoke comes in through the window, it's there, it gets into your pores, it's like it's overwhelming. But then that self-doubt comes in, like you must have hit you halfway. It's like, well, what am I really doing? Am I really making a difference? But the difference with, you know, you went ahead, you checked yourself, overthinking it, but then went ahead. So when you actually arrived at Kangaroo Island, what happened?
I mean, yeah, so I've got to Kangaroo Island, and you know, you arrive at Pennyshore and it hasn't been affected by fire there, so it kind of just, it looks quite normal, besides, you know, just like, yeah, some small things like army tents and just basically the radio talking about still like hotspots remaining on the island and expecting a 42-degree day. And so yeah, it actually seems quite severe still, and like I was still driving into, even though it'd been like 3 weeks since the bushfires, yeah, it just felt like I was still driving into this quite volatile situation.
What was the situation when you arrived? Like, approximately how many koalas had they estimated were under threat or had died already? Or
I mean, I had no idea how many koalas there were on Kangaroo Island, but, you know, there's estimates of around 50,000 koalas on this small island, which is insane. And, you know, that 80 to 90% roughly had perished in the fires. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just kept headed to the wildlife park to meet up with Ren, who was the wildlife person, and kind of just was still really like treading just really carefully, basically, and not wanting to jump into anything too quickly or overstep any boundaries, and yeah, because, you know, once it's such a kind of intense situation, right, that yeah, once you kind of overstep boundaries or you break trust, like, you know, it's really hard to come back from that. So it's funny because there's this real sense of urgency to help, but also this real need to take things as slow as you had to take them. Makes sense.
So there's a lot of humility in that, because yeah, I guess you need to fight that urge to kind of take over control. You're the tree climber. It's like, I'm going to tell you how to do all this stuff, but you certainly didn't do that. You definitely were very humble and kind of tried very hard, from what I read, to find your place and work in a team.
Yeah, like I definitely, like, there's definitely that balance, and and in like there was like, I definitely came to like this moment where like I didn't have visibility of certain people in the community, and it did feel like I had kind of maybe overstepped or and that like came as a real shock, and it kind of really made me I guess yeah, look at things, look at how I was approaching the situation differently as well. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just going to park it. So we've got you kind of arriving. I'm just going to park that for a moment. Let's just take a step back in history.
Yeah.
And you're a little kid and you're growing up in the bush, is that right?
Yeah.
Where did this
Acres.
love of koalas, where was that born from, or animals or wildlife, trees? That, I mean, where did it?
I mean,
I watched cartoons when I was little. Like.
Yeah, like I mean, I just grew up like spending a lot of time outside basically, and we had a couple of rescue birds. We had a rescue, like we like mum and I guess I helped like raise a butcher bird, and then a tawny frogmouth. So I guess experience, we had carpet snakes everywhere. Like there was a carpet snake that one time we moved the couch, and there was this massive carpet snake coiled up underneath the couch. Or
rescue carpet snake, or just a visitor?
Oh, just a wild snake, and then
right.
I'll never forget that. And one time I'll never forget this either. Just opening the kitchen knife and fork drawer, and there was a baby carpet snake in the knife and fork drawer. So I mean, this.
What did you do?
I got mum. Yeah. She would just.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, and then, like growing up, I was definitely exposed to, I guess, environmental conservation and through mum, and yeah, definitely.
And so for a while you studied and did wildlife courses, is that right?
Yeah, I guess got to this, it's hard to explain, but certainly just tried to like study native animal rehabilitation and conservation and land management, kind of like more practical applications of conservation. But later, I tried to study, I guess courses at university with a more advocacy focus.
Yeah.
So things like visual communication and public relations, where I guess that advocacy and really trying to connect with people and encourage people to care about nature. But I'm just not very good at dealing with the pressures of university, I guess. So just had some incredible kind of, I know some incredible people who are arborists, and who that's like through working as an arborist, like have like not only had the skills but also like the lifestyle and that flexibility to allow them to be kind of advocates as well for environmental conservation.
So I want to just kind of look at that for a moment. I mean, we were talking before you all arrived. We had at the beginning of the year and in the local park an arborist competition for tree climbing, and all these kind of utes and buff guys turning up with their harnesses and that. And my daughter, who's in conservation, was trying to learn to climb a tree and says it's just so damn hard. But I have to admit, I'd always, until she'd educated me a bit better, I'd always kind of, whenever there's a tree lopper around, I'd call them, I'd kind of get really angry, and I'm like, there's those guys cutting down trees again. So tell me about being an arborist, like, goodies as well as cutting down trees, aren't you?
I kind of think that's like that comes from like a real place, like, and like personally, that's largely.
We've lost you for a moment.
I think like,
just backtrack 10 seconds. We lost you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Like I think like I've found that to be my experience as well. Like, I guess the friends that I had that were arborists like did have that real come from that love of nature, place. But yeah, there's definitely like an entire industry where it's like it is this kind of real macho chainsaw wielding like culture, and it's not really that nature loving, and like this is kind of the thing that pushed me really to work for myself. Yeah.
How does a guy like you, with, you know, obviously
struggle?
Yeah, how do you deal with that kind of culture?
Yeah, like I just don't. I don't very well, and so yeah, the answer to that was to work for myself, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we've just in Melbourne, we've had the Jabwarung. I don't know if it's been in the paper. You know, the sacred old trees has been forcefully cut down to make way for a highway, and I kind of thought to myself, how would those guys cut? And, you know, the image of the tree being carted away on the back of a truck. How would you go and do that? Like, it's a job, I know, but it's like, could you imagine?
It's yeah. No.
Not fair of me. Okay, let's just cut that conversation. Okay. You're not one of them.
That's another conversation. Yeah, but I mean, it is. Yeah,
But are there people like you? Is what I'm asking. Amongst the arborist community, are there kind of?
There definitely are. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just a complete spectrum of people that work as arborists for sure within the industry. Okay. Yeah.
So hang on. So then let's transport you this, and also you said that as a kid you were scared of heights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a kid and like into adulthood, I guess, for sure.
Wow.
And so I would, like, you know, I started climbing as someone who was afraid of heights.
Oh.
I don't know, like it's just that's normal to me because that's what I did. But I guess that might sound strange to other people. But yeah. The idea of climbing, let alone climbing, like being on ropes with chainsaws, just seemed insane. Like, but yeah, it's
but
all
you
right
seem
now.
like the sort of guy that will kind of go for what, like, you know, you drive nearly 2,000 kilometers across the country in the middle of bushfires to, you know, like it's almost like you'll face your fears, like you're listening to your heart and what your heart wants to do, and you'll overcome fears to do it.
I mean, honestly, like I think I'm more afraid of like this kind of public speaking than any kind of climbing or fire or anything like that. So
hey, but you're doing it.
Yeah, I know. I'm pushing through.
So I want to just come back. I want to introduce you all. This is my embarrassing moment. This is Papa. Tyler and Genevieve have already met him. I've had him since I was 4, and I loved him growing up. He looks like he's been through fires. He's got no claws left, and his ears actually dropping off and stuff. My mother actually sewed if anyone remembers red tulip chocolates, that's the ribbon from a red tulip chocolate box that's gone around him. Anyway, he did win the grade 2 toy competition at school. But to my horror, later in life, I realised he's made out of animal fur. Never occurred to me as a child. But I loved him very, very deeply, and I still do, as you can see. Weirdo. But anyway, I wanted to read just a piece from Ceridwen Dovey's essay, which talks about the experience you were part of at Kangaroo Island and the rescue. And she's quoting from another writer called Borea Sachs. And she says, for a while, the boundary between a person and animal is blurred and almost disappears. This can produce a flurry of intense emotions such as exultation, confusion, wonder, and melancholy. Through an animal, a person achieves a renewed sense of what he is, yet also what he is not. Personal identity is challenged, redefined, and expanded, yet ultimately reaffirmed. So, Kai, if I might, let's just take you face to face with the real koalas.
Yeah.
You're up a tree. You're in Kangaroo Island. You're up a tree. I mean, you rescued 100 koalas.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how did it change you? What was that feeling when you first saw an injured koala? Just take us through the emotional kind of trajectory you went through.
Yeah, it's such a hard kind of, I know, like, it's like I know I just wrote a book, but it's still a really hard
but
thing
let me just change that. I don't want to make it that hard for you. Like, what does that connection with animals do for you?
Yeah, I mean, what does it do for me? Oh gosh.
Maybe tell us about Joey Kai.
Yeah, I mean,
Joey Kai, tell us that story.
Sure. I mean, you know, I guess for Joey Kai and just for all of these animals, right? It gives me like this sense of hope, really, and that goes for like just the preservation, you know, of nature in general. Just because like I just have this real awareness that and consciousness that, you know, we do. I just don't think we, like, you know, live in an economy, for example, and, you know, we live in this society, and part of that society is, you know, a huge part of it is nature. You know, we share this planet with nature, basically, and live in it. And so, and I guess, yeah, you just kind of seeing nature or seeing wildlife gets slammed the way it does, and so disregarded, and just seeing the trajectory that we're on, I guess.
So you basically you've climbed up these trees at great risk to yourself.
Yes and no. Yeah, like calculated risk for sure.
Looks pretty risky to me.
Yeah. And I just,
you are with your hands on a koala, like you're going to rescue him. Just take us through that. What's it like? What do you do? Like, how do you?
I mean, yeah, you want to try and ensure you're as safe as possible, and I guess like just really being conscious that the whole experience for the koala is extraordinarily stressful, and kind of trying to limit that stress on the koala, basically. And so that can mean just making it, I keep looking at the cover of the book, looking at the koala. Just trying to make it as efficient as you can. And then just not dragging it out. And so, that might mean just kind of encouraging them down to the ground to where someone can grab them, or, you know, if the tree's got multiple stems and branches and options for this koala to kind of escape and therefore prolong the experience, then it can just mean just kind of grabbing them and taking them down to the ground. And that's all very stressful for these koalas, and it's very stressful, I've realized, for whoever's actually doing that as well. And it's a very interesting thing, because although I certainly processed a lot of like what was like the emotion, I guess, at the time, and like I was able to express myself, that still kind of did, like, you still have to function, and to do that you still have to cut part of yourself off, I guess. And you don't really realize until afterwards how significant that is, and what that feels like. And I've definitely realized, if the last thing I ever want to do is to actually have to handle koalas in that way, or any kind of wildlife, and definitely just to be able to just stand back and leave them alone is the ideal situation, for sure.
And we also have this image of koalas being such cuddly, fluffy little things, especially people overseas that have never kind of seen a koala. What are they actually like when you got them in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, and in lots of ways they kind of they are that as well. And and if you leave them alone, they kind of get to be that. But yeah, when you have to put them through that, like they feel like they're being predated upon, and yeah, and it's really stressful, and they react defensively, and they've got really like effective defense mechanisms in the form of sharp claws and sharp teeth, and strong jaws. So yeah,
did you ever get bitten or scratched?
like, I mean, yeah, I've got some pretty good scratch marks on my arms, and yeah, the only time I got bitten was just through my t-shirt by Joey on my shoulder, so it wasn't too bad. And just on my wrist, but by like an adult koala, but that was through some strong material, luckily. Otherwise, I think it would have been quite bad. But yeah, you definitely want to avoid getting bitten by koalas if you can.
I don't want to trigger you, but can you just take us through, say, like an ordinary day at Kangaroo Island when you were there? But how long were you there?
Yeah.
You were there for a couple of months?
So I was there for all up 7 weeks.
So just tell us, like, what would be an average day? You wake up in the morning.
Yep. So wake up. I mean, in the early days, there was not even any time to do the washing. Like, I was onto like recycling my socks up to 3 times, which is, yeah, horrific. But it'd just be like, get up, go to the cafe, have breakfast. You have to go to the petrol station, kind of fill up every single day, because you'd use half a tank of petrol every day, and then go in and check in at the wildlife park, and then just head out into the plantations and kind of just check up on what it was basically how the dieback of the trees that had survived the fires, where we'd find the koalas, like how that dieback was progressing, and basically just drive and walk around looking for koalas that had been burnt or.
When he says drive around, listeners, I just want to show you. I mean, these are the kind of maps in the book that it sounds like you were doing more than driving around. This became a massive kind of war zone and project, and the photos in here are just extraordinary, as is the story that Kai recounts. But if I can just show you a few images from what you were taking in there, it's just extraordinary. I think my favorite photo in the whole book, I don't know how well this will show up on Zoom, but is that one. Can you see that clearly?
Yes.
That's you, correct?
That's me, yeah. And you can kind of see that where like the brown turns to that green edge, and that's kind of, that was the situation where the middle of these plantations had been so badly burnt that there was nothing there, and then on the edges of some you'd find these green slithers of trees where the koalas had either survived or they kind of found themselves, like, made their way there because that's where the leaves were still green. But yeah, like it. So yeah, I would just kind of try and do a lap basically, and monitor the condition of those trees that were still green, and see if they were declining, and just see also, because you'd have like, see if the amount of koalas was increasing there, or if the condition of the koalas was decreasing, and in doing that also, there was just later on, a few weeks in, kind of discovering that there was plantations that I had no idea even existed that were full of koalas as well. So yeah,
I just want to show you guys another photo, if I may. Does this show up okay on Zoom, guys?
Yeah.
So that's you over there, little koala over in the other side, the other tree. And then let's just flip forward. I don't want to show you too much of the book because I want you to buy it. Next shot, this is a series, okay? Here he is on the same tree as the koala. And then check this one out. And Kai, I want you to tell us what the hell is happening here.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's just a bunch of different ways to kind of get these koalas down. And I mean, this one, you know, often we'd find joeys that were out on the ends, just like amongst the leaves on these like branches, these lateral branches. And so as long, you just have to climb up to the point in the tree where that branch met the main stem of the tree, and you could just encourage the joey back down towards you, and then you could grab it basically.
Sounds really easy.
It's quite, yeah, I mean, it's kind of
all in a day's work.
It becomes straightforward, yeah.
Oh my God. I just want to show you there is a happy ending here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Look at that shot. Wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, this joey was just in this completely dead tree, and there was actually 3 other koalas, mature koalas in that tree with it. So there was no chance of, yeah. Yeah, we just had to intervene and get it back to the hospital. Yeah.
And how did you feel, like, you know, you're kind of going through, you know, the motions of what you're doing, and then you finally grab that koala? What runs through your head?
I mean, again, like, yeah, the actual experience of having to, you know, scare this koala towards you, you know, that's really, yeah, it's just a stressful, unpleasant experience, basically. And so, yeah, and just having to, you know, when you grab it, yeah, that's unpleasant as well. And so, yeah, like really just trying to get it over and done with as efficiently as possible. Yeah. And yeah, definitely once it's contained, that, you know, you've just got this moment of relief, basically. Just, it's not being handled and you don't have to handle it. And yeah, like, I guess knowing that it's getting taken back to receive care.
I mean, you were with a whole group of people who were kind of like-minded in what they were wanting to do. Did you draw any kind of solace or help from people? I mean, you know, vets that have to euthanize koalas, things, you know, people who are wanting to do good, and sometimes in order to do good, you've got to go through some extreme trauma yourself. Did you kind of find like that, those friendships or talking about that with other people helpful? I mean, a lot of ecologists talk about that too. You know, there's that, there's the joy of working with animals, but there's also a deep sadness as well.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, like everyone's kind of dealing with everything in their own way in those situations. And some people, you know, are dealing with it by just shutting down that side of them. And if, yeah, I guess you've just got to be really kind of considerate and mindful that if that's how someone copes, for them to be kind of confronted with someone who's like really expressive and emotional, like, can be just the last thing that they need. So yeah, just being mindful of that, and kind of just really sounding people out and picking and being careful with who you kind of confide in, and just, or on the other side, it's like if you're working with someone who does kind of just shuts down and gets on with it, then just kind of finding how you can get on their level as well. And yeah, it's quite interesting, but certainly far out, it's so important to be working with somebody else who you can actually get on that, whatever the way that you deal and cope with things is, like, to be able to share that with someone. And yeah.
Has writing the book been, I guess, you know, therapeutic in a way for you? Has that helped you process the emotional journey?
I think so. I mean, I found writing the book really quite confronting as well. And I had to, like it was really, really quite hard to go back through those photos and really relive those experiences. So yeah, I think that must have a therapeutic side of it. I think,
and your aim in writing it, like what if you had to say something to your readers about what you hope to achieve with this book, what would that be?
And I think maybe that's the thing that I find the most therapeutic, right? Is that people, just that people will have like a real, hopefully, just gain a better understanding of what these kind of unprecedented kind of catastrophic events mean for people on a really kind of, on many levels, as well as, just what you see on the TV or the headlines that you read, I guess. And just, hopefully that it has, really some kind of positive conservation outcome as well. Yeah, definitely.
I think I've kind of hogged you a lot. There may be questions from people, so I'd be more than happy to open it out. I've got plenty more, or if you haven't got any, I'll hog you as much as they want. But maybe chance.
So the first was from Teresa Elms. She was just wondering, Kai, did you have to undergo rural... Oops. Sorry, it just moved on me. Did you have to undergo rural fire service or other bushfire training prior to being able to go into what were fire zones?
That probably would have been good. I didn't go into any active fire zones. I mean, certainly my SES, State Emergency Service training that didn't include that wildfire awareness training, but that certainly was like good preparation just for having that awareness of, I think more than anything, just how emergency services operate, and also just like what community can actually be coping with, as well as just worrying about wildlife as well, to be just mindful of that community. But certainly since getting back from KI, one of the things I've done is obtain that basic wildfire awareness certification that you really should have if you want to be out helping on fire grounds.
Oh, so does the SES training provide you with kind of the community and emotional, some guidelines for how to cope with that?
Yeah, I can't
it was a while ago.
give you specifics. Yeah, but I mean that experience of visiting those fire affected communities and needing to have that awareness and just engaging with those people that have been affected in that way, or lost everything, having that experience is certainly prepares you.
I have a question from HB. Well, two questions. The was how many tissue boxes do you think that they'll need while reading the book?
I mean, probably just one, but as long as it's FSC certified, sustainably sourced tissues, that'd be good.
And the other question was, what are there, if any, backlashes like that you might have received from doing this work?
Backlashes. Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't really had any, touch wood, too many backlashes. I certainly, I think a lot of people have found it quite confronting to see me handle koalas like quite roughly. So I think that's confronting for people, and I completely can understand why. So that's probably the closest thing to a backlash.
But it's interesting hearing you say that in the context of then the potential harm for you and the koala that's coming from the experience.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I guess, yeah, without that context, like it just looks really, it's quite a traumatic thing to watch, and really hard to understand why you would do that. Yeah, but I think, yeah, hopefully with a bit of context, yeah, it does really flip it all around.
I think we also just have such a kind of funny mixed idea of koalas. The very like the almost like the national identity of the sweet and cuddly koala is very different to their reality.
And even like since KI, at helping Port Macquarie Koala Hospital, for example, they're using bags to handle koalas, and you never actually directly handle the koalas. It's all through, and it's actually like, yeah, it's quite a lot nicer the way they do it. But the koalas, the further north you go, I mean, essentially the smaller the koalas get, and so around New South Wales, northern New South Wales, Queensland, you're looking at about 10 kilos for a large koala, and up to 15 kilos on KI, where I just don't know how you'd go trying to get a 15-kilo koala into a bag in a kind of efficient manner. And yeah, so I think if you're mindful of efficiency equating to less stress, then it just to grab them can be
better,
the nicest thing. Yeah.
Francine was wondering if there was actually just any moment that you felt like giving up, kind of based on that running on adrenaline during the day must have been an incredibly tiring 7 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't go into this heaps, but maybe just maybe not give up, but I think just trying to navigate like working with local community, and then navigate like this, like, trying to fund what I was doing by having this online presence, and then navigate like just trying to help these koalas as well, and also just, so all of that was really just kind of this pressure that was pushing down, and like it did feel like, I don't know, like I would break quite, like, at times, for sure. But yeah,
must have been a very also a very stuck in that world as well.
Definitely.
Julie was just wondering if had you had any experience in writing before you embarked on the writing of your book?
I mean, like it's funny, on my father's side, who I haven't had any contact with, but my grandfather was like a writer, and so was my father, and I don't know, like I've always kind of just thought, oh, maybe writing's in my blood, and I've always wanted to kind of pursue writing. And I had early 20s, had a crack at some like fictional, just, I don't know, 50,000 words kind of, but it didn't amount to anything, and I didn't really pursue it, and it's just kind of sitting there now, and it's always kind of waiting for me to get back to. But so no.
What was it about?
Oh, it's kind of like this fantasy sci-fi kind of just really environmental, wacky kind of. Anyway, I'm kind of inspired to kind of jump back into that, maybe. But that's
this is off the cuff, so feel free to say no. Would you like to read a small part of the book to us?
Yeah.
Do I want to read it? Oh, really? Yeah. Which part should I read?
All of it's great. Just open up a page and go for it.
Just read it.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is a nice bit. All right. Are you ready then?
Is there a photo that goes with us?
All right. So this is the hospital. So that's the army tent version of the hospital. There was like four different kinds of hospital that were created during that time. Okay, just one page. The hospital. The hospital consists of an army tent that serves as admissions and veterinary treatment area, rows of enclosures for the first stages of the koala's recovery, and two larger tree-filled enclosures for pre-release animals. There are vet teams and husbandry teams, as well as people to coordinate hospital logistics and people to make sure there's enough fresh leaf cut for 150 koalas each and every day. There are koalas everywhere. They're waiting for admission, being assessed on treatment tables and recovering from sedation in washing baskets. The outdoor enclosures are filled with dozens of koalas at all stages of recovery. Sam and Dana's house is filled with dozens of orphan koala joeys. There was, I think there was at one time about 30 koala joeys in Sam and Dana's, kitchen. It was insane. Yeah, there's some koala joeys in washing baskets.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it's unreal. Like, it's just unbelievable and this unreal experience that, it's hard to believe even happened. Yeah.
Well, HB was asking again, actually. So where to from here for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing is that as kind of as terrible as the situation was on Kangaroo Island, the situation for koalas is kind of really much more dire in New South Wales, my home state, and also I guess a bit in Queensland too. But I live in New South Wales, and if I can, just to hopefully contribute to the conservation of koalas in New South Wales through advocacy and hopefully through whatever kind of awareness this book raises, and really trying to convert that into awareness for the conservation of koalas, more broadly, and other wildlife and just nature as well. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the last question coming through, Jenny was wondering, with borders reopened to South Australia, planning to head back to a visit to KI. Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, so throughout this whole entire pandemic, I've just kind of been hoping to make it back to KI to be there for Joey Kai's release, which unfortunately I never managed to make it back for that, even though it's really amazing that she was rehabilitated and released and she's back into the wild now, but it feels a bit kind of like self-indulgent to travel there while we're gripped by a global pandemic. So that's one side, and the other side is that I would I'm really keen to get back there and see and visit the local community there, Sam and Dana, and just see how things are recovering and try and track down Joey Kai if I can. I don't know how, but I reckon I can still recognize her.
Thank you so much. Leah, did you have any last questions that you wish to ask of Kai before I ask our
I just one question, how's it going back to your day job after you do something like this?
I think honestly, I think I almost fantasize about just really straightforward, simple manual work, yeah, that's not traumatic. Amazing. Yeah.
You sound to me like friends of mine who are doctors that have worked with Médecins Sans Frontières and come back and they're like, you know, on war zones. It's like, just show me a sore throat.
Yeah, just give me something boring. That would be great. Yeah, yeah.
It's wonderful. I'm so thrilled you published this book, and I believe some of the proceeds are going to the Humane Society too. This is not just a stocking filler. That's really like that's not saying enough about it. It is a wonderful gift, and really, I think it's not a depressing story. Yes, you'll need tissues. Yes, you will. But it's a wonderful tribute, and we just hope that it won't happen again, and that this is a warning and that we heed it. But I think this should be sent to every politician as well. And maybe every arborist, I don't know.
Say that again?
Maybe every arborist.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, yeah, certainly every politician, I think. Every person who has, yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Leah and Kai. This has been such an insightful and emotional and interesting conversation. And I've just asked everyone to unmute. So if anyone who has unmuted, if you'd like, and I'm getting so many messages through from everyone saying thank you so much and how much they've enjoyed it. But yeah, if you would join me in giving our two speakers a round of applause, that would be lovely. Yeah.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you.
Herding cats.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. And yeah, thanks everyone for your interest and for listening.
And good luck with the book. Go buy it now. Order it right now.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.